There are places where nature is silent. Dudleytown is one of them. In the heart of Connecticut, where the deep green mountains run together like a forgotten fairy tale, there is a place that today's maps only mark with faint lines. No signs, no people, no houses, just cold stone trees and a silence that is unnatural. It is called the Dark Entry Forest, and deep in the heart of the forest is a forgotten valley, almost ironically called Derwish Valley. But there has long been no whispering here, no birdsong, no rustling leaves, no wind, only one thing that covers this place: darkness. And in the heart of that darkness, there once existed a small town called Dudleytown. They called it a town, but it was never really that. When you hear the word town, you might imagine rows of houses, a small church, or a dirt road running through the residential area. But Dudleytown is none of those things. It's just a few 18th century wooden and stone houses scattered in a dense forest. At its peak, there were fewer than 30 people. In fact, it used to be called Owlsbury, perhaps because of the night owls that used to call out here. But it wasn't until the mid-18th century, when the Dudley family, immigrants from England, settled, that the name began to spread. And from the moment they arrived, something seemed to change. The story of Dudleytown begins not in America, but in England. In the early 16th century, Edmund Dudley, a powerful nobleman in the court of King Henry VII, was executed in 1510 for treason. But it is believed that his punishment was more than just the gallows. An ancient, dark curse was uttered at the moment of his death, damning the entire Dudley family to eternal damnation. From then on, misfortune began to haunt the family. And when a branch of the Dudley family left England for new opportunities in the New World, it seemed as if the curse had been left behind. But they were wrong. In the Connecticut woods, where they built a few small houses, what would soon be known as Dudleytown, strange things began to happen. Mass deaths of livestock occurred without cause. Villagers became mentally ill, hitting their heads against rocks to death. Some disappeared into the woods, leaving no trace, not even a drop of blood or a last footprint. People living nearby reported feeling a chill down their spines when they approached the Dudleytown area, as if hundreds of invisible eyes were watching. Some swore they heard eerie laughter echoing from the ground, or screams from the foundations of houses that had long since collapsed. And then, the most terrifying phenomenon: devil's breath. Every night, a thick mist carrying a flickering light like a will-o'-the-wisp would fill the woods. In that mist, there was a smell of poisonous gas, and a feeling as if time had stopped, space had warped. Some who had been there reported losing their sense of direction, seeing blurry figures pass before them and then suddenly disappear. To this day, no one can clearly confirm whether the curse is true or not, but those who have set foot in Dudleytown agree on one thing: this place is not for humans. Asterisk. Here is the English translation of your story, segment Hohan 5. Bang. Ma bin mtt, v nung siwe I shoot kang kolia gigithich. Rewritten in full storytelling style for YouTube narration at 1x speed, with all icons and punctuation removed as you requested. Part 5, the ghosts, the vanishings, and the deaths without explanation. Alotny, a name that sounds harmless at first, but if you ask the locals who live near the edge of Dark Entry Forest, they would never call it a town. They call it the Forbidden Zone, a place where something feels wrong. Always wrong for over a century, from the late 1700s to the early 1900s. Dudleytown witnessed a series of deaths, madness, and unexplained disappearances. Events so frequent and disturbing that people began to ask one simple question: how could such a small place with barely 30 people hold so much tragedy? One of the earliest recorded deaths was that of Horace Greeley, a young man living with his wife in a stone cottage near the edge of the valley. No one knew why his wife, a healthy woman, suddenly fell ill and died within days. She had spent her final hours mumbling in fever about black hands crawling across her skin at night. Not long after, Horace was found hanging from the attic rafters of the same home. The only neighbor nearby said that on the night before his death, a strange green light flickered through the window, not from any oil lamp they had ever seen. Another case was far more disturbing. Sarah Fenn, a widow living alone in the forest, began to act strangely after the sudden death of her only son. She claimed that each night voices would rise from beneath the floorboards, a childlike voice calling her name. And worse, she described seeing dark figures crawling under her bed, misshapen bodies with arms too long, dragging themselves on their elbows like insects. Sarah was eventually discovered in a state of extreme hysteria, her eyes wide open, her limbs trembling, foam at her mouth. She never recovered and was taken to a mental hospital in Hartford, where she died years later, never uttering another word. Then there was the story of Thomas Belden, the last man known to live in central Dudleytown in 1892. One day he left to gather firewood. He never came back. What was strange was that his footprints simply vanished in the middle of a dry dirt path in broad daylight. Search parties scoured the forest bush by bush, rock by rock. No blood, no signs of a struggle, no trace of any life. He had disappeared as if he had never existed. There is also the story told by residents living on the outskirts of the forest. They said a family, a man, a woman, and their child fled Dudleytown during a cold rainy night, leaving behind all their belongings, clothes, furniture, Even a half-eaten meal on the table, the oil lamp, was still burning, the back door was wide open. No signs of theft, no screams, no violence, only escapees. If they had run from something so terrifying they could not even stop to speak. Some people argue that everything happening in Dudleytown could be explained by psychology. Living in isolation surrounded by darkness, constant gloom, and harsh weather, these are the perfect conditions for disorientation, depression, and hallucinations. But then there are the details that do not fade away. Green lights flickering in the night from no known source, footsteps echoing through the woods when no one is there, dark figures standing motionless in thick fog, staring straight at the people who pass. Residents of nearby Cornwall all seem to agree on one thing: Dudley is not like anywhere else. It is a black mark on the map, not because it was forgotten, but because people made a choice to forget. And here is the strangest part: most of these stories were never officially recorded in newspapers of the time, or if they were, the mentions were faint, scattered, like someone was trying to erase the truth. As if someone somewhere does not want us to remember what happened in Dudleytown. In the next part we will explore the strange modern encounters where people returned to Dudleytown and saw things they never believed could be real. If you want me to write part 6, the unexplainable sightings, just let me know. I can also break the script down by scene for easier video production if you need. They say there is nothing left in Dudleytown: no houses, no lights, no signs of life. The trees have taken it back, roots twisting over what once were floors and walls and doors that no longer exist. But the stories never left today. Dudleytown is private, land guarded, protected, barred from the public, with warning signs nailed to trees and hidden cameras placed among the branches. The Dark Entry Forest Association has owned the land for nearly a century, and they have no interest in letting anyone stir the dust of its cursed past. Still, people try, especially on cold autumn nights as Halloween draws near. The daring and the desperate find their way through the backwoods, ignoring the signs and slipping through the dark, hoping to find proof of the legend, hoping to hear something, feel something, see something they should not. They go in with shaky hands and cameras in night vision mode, breath caught in their throat, every snapping twig a jolt to the chest. Some return and tell stories of shadows that move between the trees, far too tall and too thin to be human or animal, stories of whispers heard in a language they could not understand, sometimes in their own voice, echoing back at them from deep inside the forest. Stories of electronic failures, clocks stopping batteries, draining phones, freezing lights, dying out just before they saw something watching. They speak of dread, sudden and sharp, like being dropped into ice water, the kind of fear that makes your heart race and your knees forget how to hold you up. One video captured a shape standing completely still behind a group of friends. It was not noticed until the footage was reviewed at home. Eyes reflecting light where no eyes should have been, and behind it the trees seemed darker, as if they bent to keep it hidden. But not all stories come from people who made it back there. Our cars found parked by the roadside for days, no one inside, no signs of struggle, no footprints leading into the woods, just silence, just absence. Keys in the ignition, doors locked from the inside, sometimes the radio left playing. Static search. Parties found nothing, not a scarf, not a phone, not a shoe. It is as if the forest swallowed them wholesome. Say Dudleytown does not hurt people, it calls to those who are already broken, already haunted, and when they come close enough it simply invites them to stay. No one knows what happens if you go to deep. Some believe it is not the ghosts of settlers or soldiers that haunt the land, but something older, something buried beneath the soil itself, something that sleeps and hates to be disturbed on. Once it sees you, once it knows your name, it will wait for you to come back, because Dudleytown may be forbidden, but it is never forgotten.